Guys, welcome back to the homestead. Today I'm inside. It's a really rainy, cloudy day out there. So we're just collecting the eggs, feeding the chickens, giving the goats water and some hay, and we are heading back inside. On the weekend we had a power outage and it was actually out for almost 2 days. So it was a pretty long one. This year has been so weird weather-wise. We've had a lot of rain, a lot of ice, a lot of snow, but it melts the next day because it warms up. But then it comes with a huge windstorm. It brings in some ice and some hail. And the wind actually has been the worst part about it because it's knocking down so many trees. And it's just also knocking the power out every time the gusts get over a certain kilometers. It's been pretty crazy this past year weather-wise. Normally we do get some pretty crazy sporadic weather in and out, but this year I think it's been probably one of the worst, especially losing power. We're losing power a lot. But other than that, everything around here is going pretty good. All the animals are healthy. All the girls have been bred. So we're just waiting for around end of April to early May before our kidding season starts with the goats. We're collecting a lot of eggs from our hens and everybody's doing great. The next thing we have to do now is order our meat birds for the year. So make sure if you're into raising your own meat, or if you just want to know some more information about that, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'll be doing a lot of videos documenting my meat birds. I have other videos on my channel from last year and the years previous of how we raise, care for, dispatch, and package our chicken for the freezer for the whole year. Right now we're pretty much out of chicken. I think we have only a few whole chickens left. We do have a few ducks left as well, but we are due for chickens relatively soon. So we'll be ordering those, and once we order them, we'll show you guys the entire process. But for now, go back to last spring, you'll see the entire process. I made a pretty in-depth video on ordering your chickens, where to get them from, how to raise them, how to set up your brooder, what to feed them, how to dispatch and get them in the freezer. So I have some pretty comprehensive videos about that. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you check out my videos. I have a lot of videos on how to do a lot of things on the channel. So if you're just new here, make sure you go back and just check out all the videos I've uploaded over the past couple of years. I have a lot. Okay, so today I want to talk to you guys about acquiring your first homestead and where to start with that. Now, if you already have your own home, you've already purchased your house, you've already paid off your house, then you are 10 steps ahead. If you haven't purchased your home, or you don't think you're capable of purchasing a home, you don't think you're able to see the dream of homesteading because it seems so far in the future, or it seems so far-fetched. Well, today I want to go over a few little ideas, a few things that I think you should take into consideration and keep in your back pocket when it comes to deciding how you want to start your homestead. Or if you're a renter and you're thinking, well, how am I ever going to purchase a property? How am I ever going to be a homesteader? I want to shed some light on a few things, on a few different ways that I think you can get started right away homesteading. Basically, my first advice is to just start wherever you are. If you're a renter, you can homestead. You can have a garden. You can probably have some chickens, depending on where you live. If you're in the city, then the rules are going to be different than if you're out in the rural areas. You want to start homesteading, you want to start providing food for your family. And if you are a renter and you're in the city or you're in the suburbs and you're only able to keep a garden or just 4 hens, do that. You'll quickly learn how sufficient you can become by just having a couple of garden plots and a few laying hens, or a little space maybe in the back of your property that you can raise some meat birds because they're relatively quiet. They don't make a big stink and you don't really notice that they're even there because you don't have roosters or anything that are going to be fully mature and crowing. So all the meat birds, they're done within like 2 months. You raise them from the day you get them to the day they end up in your freezer. It's less than a couple of months, and you can provide meat for your family for an entire year. So wherever you are, you can get started. Gardening is a great way. You can do container gardening. You can do gardening in cardboard boxes. You can garden on your balcony or on your deck. You don't have to make it complex or complicated. And if you have a small space, or you live in a smaller area or not in a rural area, then container gardening is a fabulous way to start gardening and providing some food for your family. So don't limit yourself just because you don't have the ideal property or the ideal setup. Do what you can with what you have. And that brings me to the next thing, which is, should you get a mortgage or should you purchase your home outright? And if you don't have enough money to purchase your home outright, does that mean you should not purchase a home at all? Because a lot of the people I see homesteading, and a lot of homesteaders that I see online, not specifically in the real world. In the real world, a lot of people are more like myself, where we're providing for our family on a day-to-day basis, but we're not preppers. We're not preparing for grid down. We are just trying to provide sustenance, good quality organic food, homegrown food that was grown with love, with care, and with like our sustenance in mind. Most people that I know that homestead, that's what they're doing. They're not stocking massive pantries, they're not preparing for grid down, and they're not preppers. So if that's the route you want to go into, then you're probably going to have a different path than people like myself, who's just trying to provide as much as we can for our family on a day-to-day basis. Most people start off with a mortgage. Unless you are older and you've already had your mortgage, or you came into some money, or you have old money or family money or whatever it is, or investments, or you have this wonderful job where you can just save up all the money and then buy your home or your property outright, that's fabulous, and you are 10 steps ahead. Honestly, you are. But for people like myself, who we don't have the old money, we didn't have any of those types of careers where we could amass large amounts of wealth in a small amount of time, we just weren't that privileged. So we had to start literally from ground zero. So most people around my age, you know, in their 30s, from like their mid 20s to their mid 30s, you know, we don't have that much money. We haven't had enough time really on this earth to amass the amount of money that we would need to purchase a property outright. But that doesn't mean that has to stop you from homesteading. Honestly, we rented like for over 10 years, and we raised our chickens and our meat birds, and we had garden plots, and we did all of the things that I wanted to do on my property. Now, does that mean that it was the perfect property, or I was providing all of my food? No, absolutely not. Even now, I don't provide all of my food. No one provides all of their own food, because things like rice and you know, sugar and things like that, you have to purchase from a store. So the staples, you still have to have a store that you can buy the things you like. Even things like, you know, a bag of potato chips. Like, I like to enjoy a bag of potato chips once in a while, so I'm going to go and purchase that. I'm not gonna make my own potato chips. So anyway, there are things that you definitely will have to purchase. So don't burden yourself too much about trying to provide everything for your family all at once. What you want to try and do is get a property where you can eliminate one thing at a time. So for us, that was eliminating purchasing eggs, eliminating purchasing chicken, and then also we're trying right now to eliminate purchasing milk. So that's why we're breeding our goats. Only bred them to sell. We never actually milked them. We just gave the babies all the milk, and then we sold all the babies. But now I actually want to breed my goats. So that's why we switched over to the pygmies from the boars, because I want to be able to get milk for my family, so I can eliminate the cost of milk, because milk is quite expensive. So that's where I start with my homesteading plans. First of all, get a plan that's gonna be like a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. So start with a plan, but be flexible. You know, things happen. You can't account for every single thing that's going to happen. Mistakes will happen. You will definitely make mistakes. It's just part of being on the homestead. And not everything is also a mistake. Some things are just, you learn, you live, you learn. You do it one way, and sometimes you just don't like it, or you just don't, it's just not functioning the way you actually thought it was going to function. So sometimes it's okay to change it up, but just have a plan and make sure you stick to the plan as much as you can. Envision what you want in the years to come. So for me, I had a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan, and right now we're on the 3-year. So what we're trying to do now is start breeding the goats for milk so that we can eliminate that cost. And then in the 5-year plan, we're planning on actually upgrading our homestead. So anyway, that's way down the road. To get started, what you need to do is start wherever you are. Now, once you're ready to move to the next step, which is actually owning your own property, this is basically what I really wanted to talk about today. So basically, I wanted to say, get that mortgage. You don't have to purchase your home outright and Actually, it's quite difficult for most people to do that. A lot of homesteaders online will tell you that they have no mortgage on their property, and that is fabulous. That's where I wish to be one day. But you don't start off not having a mortgage. You most likely will have to start off with a smaller homestead where you have to compromise on some things. I had to compromise on this property. The house itself is immaculate and gorgeous, but the property itself, actually, I did have to sacrifice some things. I did have to compromise on some of the things that I wanted, but that got me in the door. That got my foot in the door to home ownership. And if I didn't take this mortgage out and I just tried to save up enough money to purchase the home, I probably would never be able to purchase the home, because imagine how much money I would need to buy a property outright. And especially because for us, our goal was to buy the property, but also have a livable home there. You know, I have my son and my husband, and we have a life that we want to live. We have our family that wants to come over and visit, and we don't want them to be in a rundown old farmhouse. We wanted people to come by and actually like our home and appreciate being in our home, and not thinking like, oh my God, I can't wait to get out of here. Our main goal purchasing the property was to have a nice house, and then the property would come secondary. For some people, the property is the main goal, and then the house comes secondary. But that's all in your choosing on how you want to go about it. Some people choose to buy like a small plot of land and then build on there, or have a home moved onto there for them. But again, that all will need cash up front. That's going to need liquid money. In order to buy that property, the bank probably won't finance that. And again, the bank probably won't finance you having to move a home onto the property. Some banks might, but it depends on the lending terms and everything. It all depends. Again, if you're like me and millions of other people who just need to get our foot in the door, get the mortgage. Make sure that you save up your 5%, because that's the only liquid cash you're going to need as a first-time home buyer. If it's your second home, then you're in a different zone altogether. If it's your second home, you've already done this part. But this is just for people who are on their first home, their first piece of land that they can turn into a homestead. Make sure you're buying a property where you're going to be able to actually homestead. Don't buy a property and then think, oh, I can just bring my animals and my chickens and have my big garden plot. Some places won't allow you to do that. So make sure you're out in the rural area, you're in the country, or you're in an area that's zoned so that you can actually do the things you plan on doing. The worst thing you can do is to buy a property and find out that it's not zoned for you to do the things you want to do, and then you're basically stuck there for years and years and you can't homestead, right? So get the mortgage, but make sure you choose the right property. I'm gonna go through a few things that I think is a plus about having a mortgage. We've homesteaded for years, but we didn't own the property we homesteaded on. And this is how we were able to acquire our home. There was no way we would be able to buy a land and then live in an RV and then build on that. If you want to buy a piece of land and live in an RV and have a house built or move there, that's going to require money. And if you don't have all of that money right away, you're probably going to need a mortgage. And a lot of people talk down on having a mortgage because it is the American dream to say, I live mortgage free. At the end of the day, in order to get to that point, you have to start somewhere. That's why I'm like, get the mortgage. Don't let anyone talk you out of getting the mortgage, okay? As long as you can afford it, don't be buying a house that you can't afford. That's clearly number one rule. Make sure you have the income so that you can actually afford it. Don't quit your day job, okay? A lot of people online will tell you that you can farm and you can make all your money and you can make a lucrative living, which you absolutely can. But if it's your first home and it's your first piece of property, you're probably not gonna make enough money to sustain your entire family for years to come. It's going to also take a lot of time for you to build up that customer base in order to make enough money to support you and your family. Now, if it's just you and your wife and you don't have children and you're not looking to do anything expansive, then absolutely you can sell your vegetables, go to market, you can sell animals, you can do all sorts of different things on your farm to earn money. But for the first few years, you're not going to make a profit. And if you don't have money coming in, you're gonna suffer a little bit. And in order to decrease your suffering, you wanna make sure you have enough money coming in. So don't quit your day job. Tell your husband to keep his job unless and until you have enough money coming in. I would say go even a year so that you have all 4 seasons and you can see how much money you'll make during all 4 seasons, because the money fluctuates throughout the year depending on the season. So like, for example, the farmer's market is most likely closed in the winter time, so you don't have that income coming in the winter, but during the spring and the summer you do have that money coming in. So make sure you plan accordingly, that you're going to have enough money to sustain yourself without quitting your job right away, thinking you're gonna like strike it rich and be a farmer and that's all you're gonna have to do. Most of us have to work our job for the first few years until we get that lucrative money coming in on a steady basis, that we can actually quit our job and become full-time homesteaders. Now you can start thinking, okay, what do I want to do on this property to make my living? Because if you're planning on being a full-time homesteader, you're gonna have to make money on that property. So you can do so many different things to make the money. But let's go back to the mortgage portion. If you get into a financial scrape, or in a few years you realize, you know what, I want to upgrade, which is where we're at. We're thinking about upgrading our farm already, even though it's only been 3 years. We're already seeing so many things in the future that we want to do, and my 5-year plan is coming up in 2 years, and 2 years is not that long. So make sure you have a plan, and in that plan you want to know what you're going to be doing with that first property. Is this first property going to be your only property, or is this going to be just your foot in the door so that you can actually own that property of your dreams? And we want to own properties of our dreams, right? So for me, I'm going to have my 5-year plan, but in that time, right before your closing, maybe a year and a half before closing, you might want to sell, because in that time you've accumulated enough equity in the house. Now you can actually sell that home. You can probably pay off the mortgage that you currently have. And if you're in a good housing market, which I'm in a wonderful housing market, your property should increase in value. The whole point of getting a mortgage is that it's an appreciating asset. A mortgage isn't like, oh my gosh, I'm just throwing this money away, like purchasing a car, for example. A mortgage is an appreciating asset. So once you have it, it goes up in value every year. And that's what's so great about it. So if anything happens, or your 5-year term is done and now you're thinking, I want to upgrade to the next property, I need a bigger place, I want to start raising some cattle, I want to expand my whatever business it is, now you can actually turn around, sell that house, recoup all of the equity in that house, and now you have probably enough, if it's a good market, that you can purchase your next property outright. So again, having a mortgage is not necessarily a bad thing. Another good thing is that if you have more money coming in than you initially anticipated after you buy your home and you start getting money from your farming business, now you can actually say, I can put down an extra $20,000, an extra $10,000, an extra whatever it is on the principal of that mortgage, and you can actually bring that mortgage down and start paying off your mortgage faster. So you're not just stuck, like some people say, with a 30-year mortgage. Not really. Number one, you can sell, and number two, you can pay off your mortgage quicker if you have that money. And that's why I say don't quit your day job, because any extra money that you get, you can always put that towards your mortgage to bring down the principal that you're owing. Especially if this is your first time owning a home, this is probably the only way you're going to get into the market and own your own property. For us, our main goal was to purchase this home and within 5 years, turn around and sell that home. Hopefully we have enough to purchase the next property outright, but if we don't, we'll most likely have enough to put a pretty large chunk of that next mortgage down so that our monthly payment is next to nothing. And honestly, we would never ever be able to have a dream that seems so large and crazy just a few years ago if we didn't just take the plunge and jump in and get the mortgage. Because for years and years we were thinking we have to save up, we looked into buying land, we looked into leasing land, we looked into all sorts of things like building our own house, having a prefab moved onto a piece of property, maybe that would be cheaper. Taking into account everything, getting the mortgage was the simplest, and it's such a great investment. Nothing beats real estate for investing, in my opinion. You want to make sure you're in a good lucrative market, a market where you want to be in a seller's market before you sell. You don't want to be in a buyer's market, because then that means you're probably going to have to take a lower amount for your house. So do your due diligence, but again, the best thing to do is just get the mortgage so that you're in the market. And then as soon as you get that market, that house starts appreciating in value. And by the time 5 years comes around, you've built up this beautiful homestead. You have all of these added buildings and, you know, garden plots that are fertile, and you have so many things. You've probably made the property look beautiful. You've done all of the work. You've improved the house and the property value as well. And so now that when you turn around and sell it, you can get a pretty good price for the house. And then you can turn around and literally buy your next house outright. Be realistic with your finances and your goals, and work in stages. You don't have to do everything all at once. So getting the mortgage and getting the house is stage one. Then you're going to want to do things that it's going to increase the value of your home. Talk to a real estate agent, tell them what your plans are, and they'll tell you specific things that you can do to increase the value of your home. Homesteads are built over time. You're not just going to find the perfect homestead and move in, and it's a low cost and everything is perfect on it, and it's just all glory and praise, right? A lot of the times when you purchase a property, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, and it's probably not gonna be perfect. And maybe you'll buy that property and in a few years you'll be like, oh, you know what? I don't like it at all. I wanna sell. But the greatest thing is that once you sell that house, you have so much more lucrative money now that you can start planning for a bigger dream. You can have a bigger property. You can do more. And on that first property is where you're gonna learn all of the things you need to learn. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna do things the wrong way. You're gonna have to do things one way and then have to redo it or undo it and do it a different way, because it's all part of the learning experience. And because your whole goal for this is to build your forever homestead, this first property is not my forever home. I know that because I have a bigger dream to own bigger things. Like I want to raise cattle one day, right? And I won't be able to raise cattle here because it's only just over an acre. But I had to buy this house in order to get myself in this market, in order to get myself the equity, in order to start building my wealth portfolio. I had to do that, because if I stayed as a renter and I just had a couple of investments, that wouldn't be enough for me to have this big dream of where I want to be in the future. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. I know that's difficult because you see people and they have so many amazing things in the big red barn, and cattle and goats and sheep and chickens and massive gardens, and everything is so perfect. If you get caught up in all of that, you're never going to see your dreams, right? Your dream is not going to look the same as everyone else's dream. So don't try to compare yourself. Don't get that jealousy bug in you that makes you want to keep up with everybody else, or you want to do something just like everyone else. Like, I want my garden to look just like Charles Dowding's. Well, you know, most of us can't have a garden that looks like that. And if we do, it takes time, right? You don't initially just jump into it and all of a sudden you have a beautiful, perfect garden. It takes time, it takes years, it takes working, mending, right? So don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Okay guys, well, I hope I gave you some ideas and talked you into getting that mortgage. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, so make your own decisions. This is just how we did it here. So if you guys found any of this helpful, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay peaceful. Get yourself your homestead.